Good morning and welcome to the first public budget meeting. My name is Andrea Boo. I'm chair of the Finance Committee. I will have my colleagues introduce themselves in just 1 minute. I do want to make an announcement. The Office of Language Access has arranged for interpretation for multiple languages today by language professionals. To help facilitate interpretation, here are a few tips. Speak slower than normal cadence and enunciate. Even language professionals need time to digest what you are saying and then come up with the proper words to express the thought in the target language. Utilize a shorter sentence structure than you might normally use with pauses between sentences. That is a good reminder for me as well. I want to thank you for participating in this process. It is good to see so many people out on this, what might be the balmiest, if that's a word, day of the next few days. And thank you again for participating in this very important process. The budget is a very important document that we have as a city. It is a very thick document, as you can see. I brought my example here. And your input into this is very important. This is a proposed budget. It is delivered to the council. It was delivered last week. And it is something that we listen to you and consider as we make proposals and amendments to the final budget that we anticipate adopting on March 20th and no later than March 27th, according to the charter. So I'm going to have my colleagues introduce themselves, and I will start with our host council member, Councilwoman Melissa Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilwoman Boo. We're really appreciative of the process that has been forward by Councilwoman Boo and the Finance Committee and the Finance team. Again, my name is Melissa Robinson. I represent the 3rd District. Again, thank you for being here. We look for your solutions. We look for learning about what you value and how that's enumerated in our finances. And so thank you again for being here. We look forward to all the input.
All right.
Hi, Eric Bunch, 4th District. This is our 5th time doing, or is this our 6th time? This is our 6th time doing this with Councilwoman Boo and I, and a few of our colleagues who will be here soon. But it's always a fun experience to hear folks from the community to come out and share what their priorities are. And what's important about this is that we hear a lot about the budget being a policy document. It reflects what our priorities are. But the thing is, if something is important to you and it's not in the budget, then we're not making it a priority. And so something that we have done as this council, we've worked together a lot on making sure that the priorities that are reflected throughout all of these engagement opportunities throughout the year, that making sure that those things are actually reflected in this budget. And so what you'll see as you flip through it, or hopefully you do it online because it's a lot easier to see it online, to see that all of our budget items are tied to goals. They're tied to goals that are really coming down to the basics of local government, improving the quality of life of its citizens. So thank you all for coming and sharing, and thank you for coming and providing your input and letting us know where we're doing it right, letting us know where we're missing the mark. So look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Kansas City's Mayor Pro Tem, your Mayor Pro Tem, and proudly representing Kansas City's 5th District for 5 years now, and almost 6. As my colleague just said, this is our 5th time sitting through the budget process. But one reason why I'm really excited about this year's budget is because of the priority-based budgeting, which the staff has worked for the last 3 years to transition to this priority-based budgeting process, which I was proud to be the lead sponsor on that 3 years ago, which ultimately will empower your voice as priority-based budgeting will be based upon the priorities that the residents set and that the council sets. And so I'm really excited about how we will be transitioning over to this new budget process, which is a best practice for many municipalities. And so just really excited about that. And I'm excited to hear about your comments today about how you think we should be prioritizing this next year's budget. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Jonathan Duncan, 6th District. The reason I was able to waltz in here about 9 o'clock is because the staff have already set everything up, and I just want to thank the city staff for being here bright and early, and Heather Bray for making breakfast burritos for her staff. That was incredible. There are a lot of priorities and a lot of different ways to think about what we're trying to accomplish in Kansas City. How do we fund public safety, and what does that mean? Do our efforts to fund enforcement outweigh our efforts to house our people, outweigh our ability to provide public health to our people? We need to hear from you. What do you think we should be funding? And as Councilman Bunch stated, we fund what we value. So are we funding the right things as reflected in this budget? We need your opinion on that so that we can make the right and the best decision. We all probably at this table have some different opinions about how the budget should be allocated, how those dollars should be allocated. But at the end of the day, we will vote as a body, and the majority, 7 votes, will decide exactly how we allocate these funds. But trust and believe your voice matters and does influence how those votes come down. So thank you for being here. You could be anywhere, but you're here listening to the budget, and that's making your voice heard.
Good morning. Darrell Curl, City Council, 5th District at large. I want to first of all thank you all for coming out this morning. Community engagement is very important, and I can tell by your attendance today that you feel that it's important as well. So we would love to have seen a lot more Kansas Cityans out here. I mean, of a city of about 500-something thousand people, you see what we got here. But, I mean, it is what it is. So we will take your comments very seriously. It's very important that we hear from you. I'm glad that you're here this morning. I also want to thank the staff for their work, because it takes a lot of work to go into putting something like this together. I want to thank my colleagues for attending, because as a body, we should be here listening to what you have to say, and I look forward to those comments and working to try to come up with the best solutions based upon your comments as to what this budget looks like. So thank you once again for your commitment and your involvement, and I look forward to hearing from what you have to say.
Good morning, and welcome to the 3rd District. If you haven't been here before, if you have, welcome back. I'm Melissa Patterson-Hasley, City Councilwoman, 3rd District at large. And not to belabor the point, but looking forward to hearing your thoughts about this year's budget. We do take that seriously. A number of comments that we heard last year did actually make it into the budget as amendments. So looking forward to hearing your feedback. Thanks for being here.
All right, thank you. And we have 2 more budget meetings. So Councilman Curls, there's an opportunity for about 499,950 or so of our residents to come to those meetings. But I want to thank you. This is a great turnout for our first public budget meeting and for a rainy yet slightly warmer day. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Krista Morrison, our budget officer, to explain not only the budget process, but what I believe she will talk about what Mayor Pro Tem discussed in our priority-based budgeting.
I'm going to start today with an overview of Kansas City's fiscal year 25-26 submitted budget. So you can see the highlights and changes from last budget year. And then, of course, we have our full budget document available online at www.kcmo.gov/budget. So our budget document is 750 some pages of everything you might want to know about Kansas City's budget, I hope. So the budget is broken down in several categories. The first is the transmittal letter, and that is a letter prepared by the mayor and the city manager that highlights major changes in Kansas City's budget and priorities in funding in this submitted budget. I'll highlight a couple other areas here if you just want to focus on, if you have time to read 20 pages in that book. I would suggest that you look at the transmittal letter and the budget overview. The budget overview shows major highlights and changes. There's also views at the department level, at the service level in the program activity pages. Kansas City passes a capital plan, a 5-year capital plan, and that's contained in this budget document. So residents not only know what we're funding this year, but also for the next 4 years for capital improvements with your taxpayer dollars. And then the budget also provides various fund schedules, so you can take a deeper dive and look at Kansas City's budget in various ways. Next slide. So Kansas City's budget is broken down by council priorities. And this is outlined every time a council comes into office. We go through public engagement sessions. And I would encourage you ahead, when there's a new council, to watch for these meetings. Because what that does is it sets the goals and priorities for Kansas City over the next 4 years. So this budget is broken down, and you see what our council priorities are. This is part of the past citywide business plan outlining this council and funding goals for the next 4 years for Kansas City. The citywide business plan is included in the adopted budget, so you can learn more there. Next slide. So Kansas City's submitted budget is a $2.5 billion budget. Our budget is broken down in 2 categories, and these are just basic accounting for government finance standards. The first is considered governmental activities funds at $1.7 million. The second is business type activity funds. Business type activity is our water and aviation department for the city. They're fee supported, and only those fees can be used to support that budget. A little bit about how Kansas City's budget is broken down. This is Kansas City's budget as a whole. These are the revenues for the city. Kansas City's budget is broken out by, we call a third, a third, a third. A third in red are business type activities in Kansas City's budget. That's our water and our aviation departments. They are fee supported. Those revenues can only support those operations within the city. The next category is special revenue, debt funds, and capital funds, representing another third of Kansas City's budget. This third of Kansas City's budget is restricted by what voters and legislation say we can use that money for. So I'll give an example of park sales tax approved by voters. That's a special revenue fund for the city. When voters of Kansas City approved a park sales tax, that money can only be used to support the operations of the Kansas City park system. The other third of Kansas City's budget is the general fund, and that is our least restricted by use, but it also supports some of the most important citizen priorities in Kansas City's budget, and we'll talk more about the general fund ahead. So we just talked a little bit about where the money comes from. This view shows you how the money is spent by council goal. So on the right, we have business activities, and that's considered infrastructure and accessibility. That's our water and aviation department. Those funds can only be used to support those operations. On the left is the special revenue funds, the debt funds, the capital funds we talked about, as well as the general fund. You will see here for the governmental activities, 41.6% of Kansas City's budget is spent on public safety, You'll see housing and healthy communities represents 19%, infrastructure and accessibility at 20.6%, inclusive growth and development is 9.8% of Kansas City's budget, and finance and governance is 9% of Kansas City's budget. So this next slide illustrates what that means in dollars. And you'll see here our adopted budget in our current fiscal year and what is being submitted in the fiscal year 25-26 budget. And you'll see a difference column of what's changing. So you can see here, the largest change in the submitted budget is in the finance and governance section, and we'll talk more about that ahead. We have some one-time investments needed for the city, like building improvements and some technology infrastructure for the city, really driving that increase. Our next area of highest increases is public safety, increasing $71.9 million or 11.7%. And we'll talk more ahead. I have a specific slide to talk about each of these goals and major highlights about these changes. So here's a view of Kansas City's budget by department. This is governmental activities. So this is excluding our aviation and water department, but it shows how dollars are being spent not only at the goal level, but at the department level. So the largest funding for Kansas City is, of course, we talked about public safety. Our police department is funded at $343 million, and followed by our fire department funded at $321.5 million. I won't go through each of these categories, but this illustrates really, and this is also broken out in the budget overview online, how Kansas City is allocating within its departments and goals for the 26 submitted budget. So I want to talk specifically about the general fund for Kansas City because this is the least restricted by use of funds for Kansas City. So oftentimes when new service requests for the city are being considered, this is often where we're looking because we have to use aviation funds for aviation. We have to use park sales tax for parks programs. So here is a breakdown of the general fund for Kansas City, our least restrictive funds. And this shows you where the money comes from in the general fund. The majority of funding is supported by our earnings tax in Kansas City at 44%. And then you'll see here a breakdown of the other types going in there. Most notably, the next in category is utility taxes at 13% and local use tax for online sales at 13%. I won't go through each of these, but this just illustrates where the money is coming from. So the next slide talks specifically about how we're spending money of the general fund. This is our least restrictive of the funds, and you'll see here 72% of Kansas City's general fund is spent on public safety. That is the fire department, that is the police department, and the municipal court for Kansas City. Other categories here include our finance and governance goal at 13.3%. Those are our main central departments for the city supporting operations like the finance department that I'm from, the law department, general services. You'll also see housing and healthy communities at 12.1%. Some of the largest areas of growth in recent years has been in public safety and housing and healthy communities. And this budget makes considerable investment there too, and we'll talk ahead about that. So one of the challenges, and you heard the Mayor Pro Tem Park Shaw speak specifically about priority-based budgeting, and why this is so important for Kansas City is this slide right here. The submitted budget for Kansas City for fiscal year 26 for the general fund, expenditures are exceeding revenue by $64.5 million. And this is an issue that we have to face ahead as residents, but also the very tough job these elected officials have. Because What we're delivering for Kansas City is basic quality of life services, and there isn't enough money to do everything. So some tough decisions will have to be made ahead. So what I'd like to show you here is the top blue line is our ceiling and our floor. So Kansas City and our policymakers have prioritized an emergency reserve, a fund balance reserve for Kansas City. Just like if you're balancing your checkbook at home, we can't get in a position in a city that we don't have an emergency reserve. In the event of COVID or a pandemic, residents still need services delivered. So this council has passed a policy that we have a 3-month emergency reserve, 3 months of expenditures every year. Our emergency floor is 2 months. That's the red line in this chart. We are very fortunate to be in a position right now to be above the above our target reserve. But this budget will draw down, passed as is without any amendment, $64.6 million. And this is a conversation that this city council will be having ahead in next budget year. But what I think they have so smartly done is built the framework around this concept of priority-based budgeting. And what priority-based budgeting in the past, when we had faced a situation like this, what that meant was every department got the same cut across the board. Every department got 11% cut, 5% cut. And what that means is we have very inefficient and it's not strategic approach to resource allocation. So what priority-based budgeting is doing is building the framework for how does each and every service align to meet resident priorities? How does each and every program serve our population served? And that is the framework being built this year to be able to support strategic decisions, because this is a tough choice ahead, not only in this budget for any additions, but also in future budgets for Kansas City. Without any change, by next fiscal year, we will be in a position for Kansas City that we are below our target reserve. And that is not a position that we want to be as a city, because we want to be able to continue to deliver services ahead. This slide just illustrates the general fund balance. The red is our structural imbalance for the general fund. So this budget that's presented has a structural imbalance, but I do think the City Council is building the strategic framework for those choices ahead on how we can continue to deliver priority services for residents. So I'll talk through a few highlights in Kansas City's budget. This is not all encompassing. It is a $2.5 billion budget, but these slides are meant to talk about major changes at the council goal level. So starting with housing and healthy communities, this budget increases the dangerous building demolition by $1.7 million for total funding there of $5.2 million. I hope you'll see there is a focus on clean, safe neighborhoods in this budget. This has been a priority of the city manager and city council, and I think you'll see some great progress in funding here to correspond with that. The second is that this budget adds $1.4 million for illegal dumping enforcement. So that's a significant increase. That will achieve funding levels of $2.4 million. So we are significantly increasing that budget. This budget includes $8 million dedicated to violence prevention and intervention. That has been a priority of this city council, not just to focus on the enforcement side, but what are we doing for prevention and intervention? This budget funds the full implementation of trash and recycling carts that have been rolled out throughout the city, and it maintains the expanded bulky item operations, supporting a cleaner Kansas City. This budget adds a dedicated team in the Parks Department for the maintenance of Brush Creek, and this budget extends the Rebuild KC program with $300,000 of funding for neighborhood grants. The Rebuild KC program was started during the American Rescue Plan with federal dollars, and it was has been, I think, instrumental in support of neighborhood initiatives, so this budget continues that program with general fund dollars. This budget is year 3 of 3 for a $1 million annual investment to plant 10,000 trees during this 3-year period. Also, this budget focuses on housing security and supporting those experiencing homelessness. This budget is year 3 of 4 of an annual $12.5 million investment for a total funding over 4 years of $50 million in the Housing Trust Fund for Affordable Housing Initiatives. This budget maintains $2.6 million for the Right to Counsel program that has supported so many individuals and families facing eviction. This budget adds $1 million in emergency rental assistance. This is something that the city was previously supported by grant dollars. Those grant dollars have ended with the American Rescue Plan, but understanding the urgent need in this community, this budget funds that from the general fund. This budget expands emergency shelter for those experiencing homelessness beyond extreme winter weather with the addition of $1 million. This budget dedicates $750,000 for homeless encampment cleanup. And those, while that program has been operating, it's been taking from critical operations supporting other services in the city. So we're dedicating a line item there for the important work. This budget continues to maintain $1.1 million for small business support. In the area of public safety, I mentioned before, this public safety is the largest expense in the governmental activities budget at $688.3 million. Public safety accounts for 72% of the general fund and 41% of the governmental activities budget. This budget prioritizes increases in wages and benefits for our fire department and our police department public safety officers, so we can make sure we can recruit and retain quality public safety officers. And this budget also adds $1 million in support to enhance security for entertainment districts in the city. In the area of infrastructure and accessibility, this budget continues to fund sidewalks and ADA improvements for sidewalks with $7.5 million of annual funding from the GEO bond approved by voters in 2017. This budget also dedicates $14.6 million in sidewalks focused around elementary schools. This budget adds $3 million for Vision Zero. Vision Zero is the city's program for safer streets, for our high traffic and for our pedestrians to ensure that we do have safe streets, for the highest funding level ever in this initiative at $8 million. This budget provides $34 million for the neighborhood preservation projects through its PIAC program. If you don't know about PIAC, you can go to kcmo.org/budget. PIAC is a resident-driven priority for improvements you need in your streets, curbs, parks, and public facilities. This budget adds $3 million for the city's continued streetlight conversion and maintains the enhanced snow removal operations started several years ago with this city manager. In the area of inclusive growth and development, this budget adds $500,000 for contract management and additional advocacy in the Civil Rights and Equal Opportunity Office. This budget adds $2.5 million for maintenance and event support of the convention facilities. And it reorganizes our city planning and development department, promoting efficiencies while continuing development activities at a productive pace, and finalizes preparations as Kansas City prepares to host the 2026 World Cup, anticipated to bring 650,000 visitors to Kansas City over 2 months. And then finally, last but not least here, finance and governance for Kansas City. I talked about some one-time investments. This budget adds $10.2 million for a one-time investment for the city's enterprise resource planning software. That is basically the backbone of the technology supporting all of our city departments for HR, for finance operations, for procurement throughout the city. This budget's adding $10.8 million for facility improvements. It continues replacement of city fleet that's at its end of its useful life to include our snow removal and trash trucks, and then adds $500,000 for wayfinding signage to improve accessibility and mobility across the city. I can't cover every detail in Kansas City's $2.5 billion budget, but those are the major changes. There will be two other opportunities, as our finance chair spoke, for public budget hearings to provide your input. The second will be held Monday, February 24th at 6 p.m. at Woodneath Library. The third is on Saturday, March 1st at 9 a.m. and this is located, it will be at Avila University in the Goppert Theater. There's also an opportunity for those you might want to add input after today if you don't want to speak, or those that cannot be here today. If you go to Budget's website, there is a link for Speak Easy, where you can provide electronically your feedback on Kansas City's budget. And every week we have a shared location to provide elected officials your direct input on Kansas City's budget. So again, I thank you for being here today, taking your time on a Saturday morning to engage in Kansas City's budget process. And with that, I will turn it over to our Finance Chair, Boo, so we can hear from you.
All right, thank you, Krista. And again, I want to reiterate what some of my colleagues have said. This opportunity is for us to listen. We are going to listen. We're not going to make decisions today, and we're likely not going to make commitments today because we have two more budget hearings. We're going to hear from perhaps Councilman Kroll's, our other 499,000 constituents. Just kidding. We love to have some fun as we tackle the serious businesses issues that face Kansas City. So I don't want to take up any more time. Where are right here. Are they coming here to speak, Krista? Where are they? Oh, right here? Okay. So when I call your name, and most of you have circled yes or no. There are a few that did not circle yes or no. I'm not going to call your name, but if you do want to speak, there will be an opportunity at the end. So I believe, one more question. I apologize, this is our first go. Will there be a timer? Okay, so there we go, right up there. So I'm going to call in groups of three, and I'm going to apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name for two reasons. I just apologize. And second, I didn't bring my reading glasses up here. So first of all, Nick Miller, Anthony Cunningham, and Ryan Dickey. So Nick, if you will start at the microphone, and then Anthony and Ryan, please be ready to continue.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nick Miller. I'm ATU 1287 president. Most of you council members up here I've spoke to, you all have known about a deficit for quite some time. I've come to you all's office personally and spoke to you all along with Frank White III about a $30 million deficit that we have. What is going to be done to bridge this gap? I've been told by many of you all that your colleagues believe that KCATA is misappropriating the funds. But last I checked, the only way that they can get the funds is by approval by you all. So I'm not understanding how this is actually even possible, for one. The other thing is, it's very saddening to hear that you all put money aside for trees, but there's no money put aside for public transportation. Right now, we're looking at perhaps 100 jobs or more being cut, 15 routes being cut, and you say you're going to prioritize things. When is public transportation going to become a priority? Thank you.
And if we could hold the applause to the end, that will make things, well, I guess maybe not to the end. I guess we can applaud at the very end all the people who came out and spoke.
Yep. Hi, my name is Anthony. I live in Midtown in the 4th District, and I'm a bus rider. and I'm calling on you to fully fund our buses in this year's budget and prevent the loss of 15 bus routes and over 150 good union jobs, because I can't afford to lose the 201 bus that takes me to work, puts food on my table. I can't afford to have my job threatened when I have to support my mom, my brother, my niece, because I can no longer make it to work. This budget underfunds our buses by almost $30 million, which is a deliberate choice that's going to harm bus riders, workers, and our most vulnerable communities. This gap has existed for years. You've known about this. But this year, it hits different. This year, we don't have KCATA's COVID money or the reserve fund as a backstop. If you choose to cut our buses, this year it'll be bus riders and transit workers who have to pay with our jobs, with our livelihoods. And make no mistake, you can choose to fully fund our buses. In this year's budget, there's $18 million from the half-cent public mass transportation sales tax, of which this body has historically chosen to divert away from buses and into projects like purple streetlights and to benefit motorists. Additionally, y'all have continued to write blank check after blank check to the KCPD. If you truly want our city and our people to be safe and secure, that $23 million increase you're giving them should instead be invested in services that give us access to jobs and grocery stores so that we can put food on our tables. What do you think is going to happen when you choose to cut our buses and cut us off from these things? What's going to happen to the hundreds of workers who are going to lose their jobs? Are you making us safer? Are you making us more secure? I need you, my elected leaders, to step up to the plate and fully fund our buses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. I'll give you all a second. My name is Ryan Dickey. I'm a resident of the 4th District and a leader with Sunrise Movement Kansas City. I'm also here to testify in favor of funding our bus system and its budget gap. I would love to see a regional funding model that funds our regional system, but this year we simply do not have the time to get that in place. That takes a lot of time, and we are on the edge of a cliff where we could lose a significant chunk of our bus system, which would take years and even more money to rebuild from the ground up versus maintaining until we can get long-term funding locked into place. Mayor Q and Brian David Platt seem content to chop up our city and its public systems and sell them to the private market, as rent, food, and childcare are historically expensive in our city. I do not think this is a legacy that this council would want to hitch its wagon to. We have a fund in the city that is established, the Public Mass Transportation Fund, that is established to fund public mass transportation. Right now, about 60% of that goes to our buses. I can't know what other systems are funded in there. If there are important programs such as sidewalks or other non-car-based transit, I would love to see them homed somewhere in the general fund, but I do believe we need to fund our buses. There's at least $15 million in there that we can find to fund around a $20 million to $30 million budget gap that we see. And also, if that is not enough, we are seeing a $23.3 million increase in the police budget here in a time where our federal government is taken over by fascists, our state government indicates enthusiastic cooperation with that government. We really, really should not be overfunding the police agency that is run by the state, especially not this year. I remember 3 or 4 years ago, they had $270 million. Now we're looking at $343. We need our buses much more than we need to fund the police, well beyond the state's minimum here. So it is up to the council and our colleagues here, and your colleagues not here in this room. Will you stand fast with your neighbors and fund an essential system that produces a huge return on each dollar invested? Or will you continue to underfund and sell out our public systems to private investors and sweep people into the trash after they fall through the cracks? Thank you.
Thank you. I know that 2 minutes is a short amount of time and that you want to get a lot in, but our interpreters are having a hard time keeping up. So to the extent that you can slow down at the beginning and then if you want to get on all your information at the end, thank you. Okay, the next 3 that I'm going to call are Derek, Ezekiel Amador, Jorge, thank you. I know you were here last year and I messed that up too. Thank you. Go ahead, Derek.
My name is Derek. I'm sure most of you have at least one vehicle and can afford to Uber when convenient. I want you to imagine that you did not have these privileges and were dependent on public transportation. 150 union jobs and 15 bus routes are at risk. The bus is many people's lifeline, and these budget cuts will sever people's means to survive. If you can't put yourself in people's shoes and listen when we're telling you to fund our buses, then why are you here? Who do you represent? That is all.
Derek.
Morning, my name is Ezekiel Amador, and I live at 27 and Madison Avenue on the historic West Side, which we all know is the best side. Thank you for making the budget public and bringing it to the neighborhoods. I chair the Tony Aguirre Community Center Advisory Committee. Thank you for your support for the Tony Aguirre Community Center and the Advisory Committee. We ask you to maintain that support and partnership as we progress towards fulfillment. We leverage our community center as a crime prevention tool. If we have kids engaged with activities and with a fully staffed and fully programmed community center, our neighborhood kids are not out likely causing mischief. They would just be too pooped. The new outdoor pool is scheduled to open this season. We look forward to a fully qualified staff, fully functional, and fully programmed outdoor pool so that we can maximize the investment we have made in our community center, our neighbors, and our kiddos. The other entities we consider a partner in the health of our neighborhood is the Kansas City, Missouri Public Library, Irene Reese Branch, and the Westside Can Center. Our works, our improvements, our aspirations for our neighborhood are dependent upon these partnerships. We are here to preserve funding in these challenging economic times. We know your task has been daunting. Thank you for your support, the remarkable strides we've made in making the West Side the best side.
Good morning, City Councils and everyone sitting here. My name is Jorge Coromaca. I'm the director of the West Side Can Center right there in the West Side, the best side. We just wanted to express our support to the implementation of the West Side Can Centers and congratulations for the new one open this year. Congratulations this past year. The West Side Can Center is a tool that really equips the community to continue engagement and represent the needs of the community. The West Side Can Center will continue the implementation of the community policing program in partnership with the city, with KCPD, and the community that is so important communities engaged. West Side Can Center will continue the implementation of the different programs in the community in regards to blue bags, the bulky items, and we will be continuing reading the community to report illegal dumping, graffiti, and obviously participate in the BIAC projects. We request to continue providing funding to first responders, the right council eviction programs, the update the trucks that help us with the snow removals, because there is some of my staff that is in the streets for hours waiting to be fixed. So please, besides the selfies, it will be great to fix those trucks that is needed in the community. And also, we request a fully program support to the programs such as the new Refugee and Immigration Service Program, especially in these challenging times. As it's important to have these hearings, we also applaud the work of the city auditor reports because give us the transparency what is happening when the budget is approved. And lastly, please continue working hard. We know you left your families in every day, but we support your families too. We want a city operating, especially when we had this last year, the scam that stopped the city. We cannot live without the city. So please, let's keep working together. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call the next four names to complete this first sheet. Linda Williams, Matthew Blaine, Michael Kelly, and Joshua Hell.
Good morning. My name is Linda Williams. I'm a 3rd District resident and the co-founder of KC Melting Pot Theater, which performs at Just Off Broadway Theater in the 4th District. I'm also the program manager for The Drop, which is an access ticketing program developed by Arts KC. This program breaks down barriers for more community members to participate in the arts by offering members the ability to purchase 4 tickets for $10 to arts events around the city. This program also focuses on breaking down barriers for transportation and for members feeling that they belong in these art spaces. I'm asking the city to prioritize the funding request of $200,000 for this program that will allow more Kansas Cityans to fully participate in the arts. More community members need access to the benefits the arts provide, and not all communities have been able to fully participate in those benefits, and this program is the way to change that for more Kansas Cityans. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to come and speak before you all, and for you to listen. I also appreciate my 3rd District representatives being here. I learned more about the budget being here, so I have no issues with the budget itself. I just wanted to make sure that the funding goes to the areas that need it the most. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And those areas are the lower income areas, which of course I live in. It doesn't take very much to walk around the neighborhoods to see that they need improvements. There's a lot of houses that are dilapidated, a lot of empty lots, and also sidewalks. You just walk around the neighborhood, you can see a lot of damaged sidewalks. I know there's the PIAC program that we can apply for. I think that's kind of strange that we apply for something that should just kind of happen. Like, there should be somebody that's appointed that goes around and sees this stuff and goes, oh, we should fix that. But maybe that's another subject. So yeah, I just wanted to come up and say that the lower income communities are the ones that really need the funding the most. And I saw that the housing and the public safety were on that budget, and I was happy to see that. So thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Michael Kelly, and on behalf of Bike Walk KC and our members, I want to ask for your continued support for multimodal transportation priorities. I want to start by thanking you for allocating $8 million for the implementation of Vision Zero. Traffic violence continues to be a challenge in our city and across the state. Preliminary numbers from MoDOT for 2024 showed pedestrian fatalities increased by 16%. The funding from Vision Zero will enable small-scale interventions like crosswalks and speed humps, as well as broader corridor improvements that make it safer and easier for people to roll, bike, and walk in Kansas City. I also want to thank the city for allocating $22.1 million for sidewalk and ADA improvements. The proposed $14.6 million for sidewalks around elementary schools is a welcome addition to this parent of elementary-aged children, and it is great for our broader efforts to create more safe routes to school. I lastly want to ask the City Council to find a way to increase funding for transit operations. What is currently being proposed in the budget isn't enough to prevent cuts to existing service and the loss of union jobs. KCMO is being asked a lot, and I want to acknowledge that the current system is unsustainable. We need a regional funding approach, and Bike Walk KC is eager to work with the Kansas City Regional Transit Alliance, Sunrise Movement KC, and others to determine how to make that a reality. In the meantime, please work to find a way to preserve what existing transit we have. We are living in uncertain times. The budget process and this final product is a chance for the City Council to provide clarity, guidance, and hope to constituents who desperately need it. Please, maintain proposed funding for walkability and Vision Zero and increased funding for transit. Thank you.
Good day. My name is Joshua Hale. I'm a 3rd District resident and Kansas City native, born and raised, and hopefully 3rd District is on its way to being the best. I want to say, as a newly elected volunteer for KC Can Compost, I wanted to issue a thank you to the City of Kansas City and everyone, the community, for its support and valuing KC Can Compost. For those of you who don't know what KC Can Compost is, there's a website, you can find that out, but KC Can Compost is an innovative nonprofit enterprise committed to the transformation of Kansas City's social and environmental landscapes. We not only collect organic waste and divert it from the landfill for composting, but also educate and train people struggling to overcome barriers to employment for work in green industry jobs. 2 goods, 1 solution. There's also an app that you can download, BB Compost. And if you haven't noticed, at the southeast corner of the parking lot, there's that orange blue bin compost. That's where you can have 24/7 access to a lot of the different locations to compost your waste. It does keep the rats and other pests away from the food source. It's a consolidated drop-off locations that make it more efficient and scalable to compared to curbside. It enables organizations to offer food waste collection programs more cost effectively so they can expand faster and further. And we just want to remind you, if you know anybody that's looking for an employment and a green job, head over to KC Can Compost. Continue to support and value. And my last point of humor, KC Can Compost is putting our money where our mouth is. Get it?
Stephanie Singleton, Layla Zadi, and Raymond Forstatter.
My name is Stefan, and I'm representing the 4th District. It's okay. It's all right, child. There can be no sustainable and thriving city or city business without well-being. There's no well-being without creativity. Without creativity, there's no you or me. I am here on behalf of the arts in Kansas City, and by cutting the funding for arts, you are cutting out integral parts of the heart of a happy, healthy, and unified city. Art sees how parts come together for a full picture, and you keep trying to do this job without artists, and because of the greed of a few, the many of us who you know this process isn't accessible for continue to suffer. Artists can help you. We want to help you. How did we get to a place where our funding continues to be gutted? Art and music education has been decimated in our school districts, and because of that, our kids don't have any outlets besides competition. They don't have the tools to critically or creatively think anymore, and because of that, we see violence continue to grow. And what has the answer been? It's been more police, a bigger jail, more shops, new stadiums, more and more when we can just invest and lift up the infrastructure that is already here. That infrastructure is our human development, and it has taken a backseat to developers and city plans that love quick cosmetic wins but not the repair required to make those efforts amount to more than just flexes for tourists. In sports, there's always a loser, and art always wins. Where would this city be without jazz and blues and the performing arts and museums and black and brown leaders who have had to spin scraps into gold? That gold is rarely minded or mined, so don't forsake the arts. Do not cut our budget. We need more than 1%. We need more than $400,000.
Hi, my name is Layla, and my comments are actually to the crowd. I want to share a part of the city budget with you all that was not shared. In this $2.5 billion budget, our council has left a glaring $30 million gap, and during COVID, our council put one-time COVID relief money into our bus system to redirect millions of dollars from the public mass transit fund away from buses. And now that COVID relief money is gone, and there's a gap in our bus funding. And we as a movement of young people fighting for fast, frequent, accessible transit powered by good union jobs, has sent hundreds of emails. We have met with these council members many times. We submitted a petition with over 1,000 signatures. They know this gap is there, and they have chosen to not create a plan for 15 bus route cuts and the loss of 150 union jobs. And if, I want to be clear, you may not care about public transit, but you probably care about public engagement because that's why you're here on a Saturday. And if thousands of attempts to sway this council cannot convince them that public transit is a priority, then our fundamental democracy is at stake. There is actually a plan that they're not talking about. That plan is called IRIS. Can you please raise your hand if you've seen a purple car in this city called IRIS? That service is run by a for-profit union-busting man named Bill George, and his business is valued in the billions. Imagine hearing this about your schools, your parks, or your trash service. And so this council, I have to ask you, which side are you on? Are you on the side of everyday people and the bus drivers who make the city great, or are you on the side of sports owners and billionaire investors? We will remember which side you pick when you run for mayor and when you run for city council or when you run for Congress.
Hello, my name is Raymond Forstatter. I'm a bus rider, I'm a 6th District resident, and I'm a leader with Sunrise Movement KC. My family ended up in Kansas City after moving around a few times because of a job opportunity that my dad had that offered a secure career and community in KC that my parents saw themselves raising my brother and I in. After going to college, I now find myself in Kansas City searching for those same things. A fulfilling and dignified career that gives me the freedom and means to be in community and live a happy and healthy life around my family. It sounds simple, but I know you're all smart enough to know that it's not that simple. Unfortunately, I've been part of 2 team-wide layoffs at my last 2 jobs and find myself in a position where I'm searching for work again. Living in a one-car household, I rely on our buses as much as I can, but it also means that a lot of my job options in the area are limited to what is reliably accessible through our bus system. Now, the proposed budget would lead to service cuts that would further limit where I can access a job in Kansas City. I believe our budget should reflect what works for the working people of the city. But if you don't fully fund buses, you'll cut off many people's access to jobs, and you'll also be dooming union workers for ATU Local 1287 who keep our buses running to layoffs as public transit throughout the region is siphoned off for exploitative programs like IRIS that KCMO government is responsible for championing despite being run for private profit, not public good. As our city council, you have the power in the budget to show what you believe we deserve as residents of this city. Do you believe in a city that values strong public transportation powered by good union jobs? Or is Kansas City looking to kill off public transit and lay off union workers in order to prioritize a system like IRIS being run for profit by union buster Bill George, whose workers have made clear that he isn't doing right by them? For the working people of this city and for union workers that keep our buses running, please amend and pass a budget that fully funds our bus system. Thank you.
Okay, the last 2 on this sheet is Ebony Fondren and, I'm sorry, Paula Saunders and Ebony Fondren.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Ebony Fondren. I'm a jazz vocalist, a proud jazz vocalist in Kansas City. I have been for the past 20 plus years. I'm a musician, entrepreneur, and I'm an international ambassador to Kansas City for jazz music. Outside of Kansas City, we have a reputation of being a music city all around the world. When they hear that I'm from Kansas City, they go, wow, the jazz must be great, the music scene must be amazing. And then I come home and we have no support. Creative City Kansas City is an organization that supports our designation in UNESCO as a creative city of music, the only creative city of music in the United States, and they cut our funding. What we do is we preserve our music history in this city. In 2026, FIFA is coming to Kansas City, and I guarantee you, all of those people from around the world are gonna wanna come to Kansas City and hear music, and that's gonna fall on us, the artists, to do that. This organization promotes and supports that relationship between the world and what Kansas City has to offer, so I implore you to please reconsider and invest in Creative City, Kansas City. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paula Saunders Lewis, and I am also a jazz musician here in Kansas City. I'm going to echo a lot of what my colleague Ebony just said. I am here to testify on behalf of Creative City KC. We request full financial support for Creative City KC and our membership in UNESCO Creative Cities Network as the first UNESCO City of Music in the United States. I, along with 4 other KC musicians, traveled to Chile in 2023 under this program. And we had the opportunity to collaborate with local musicians. As Ebony just mentioned, people have heard of us in other countries. They presume we have an amazing jazz scene here. What a shame it will be if they come to Kansas City in 2026 and find that that is not the case. We absolutely need the support. We know that the City Council is working to restore UNESCO funding, and we want you to know that these musicians, we all value UNESCO and want to see the investment in music. Councilwoman Robinson, thank you so much for advocating for UNESCO in the budget and getting us to Chile. We know that you and Mayor Pro Tem Shaw have been to Portugal and are advocates for UNESCO and music, and we truly appreciate your support. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Ron Hunt, Lucas Sander, and Lillian Huma.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, my beautiful city council persons and stuff. I didn't wish y'all happy Valentine's Day, but all the beautiful ladies up there, happy done. The brothers, I hope y'all spent your money on your significant others. But hey, I'm really proud of you guys. It's hard, it's really hard serving our community. It's a tough, tough job. It really is. And I say, and open and honestly, y'all doing a good job. You're doing a good job. I'm not gonna get up here and criticize you, but here's the thing. Here's what I'm really interested in, my taxpaying dollars, you know. TNT program, Arts Tech, they work with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. I'm a great fan of the police department. We need our police department. They have some problems. They have big problems, but we're gonna solve it. Second is the Prospect Corridor. Last year, I spent a lot of time on 31st and Prospect, 27th and Prospect, 35th and Prospect. You know, we got to do something about that, all the way from 27th to 63rd, you know, and this is what we want. Another thing is minor home repair. You gotta think about your seniors, such as myself, you know. Think about your seniors. That minor home repair, you need to put more money into it. I'm being really, really honest with you. The buses, I support these people. I support the bus service, really, really. See, when we elect y'all, we elect you guys to be good stewards of our money. You see what I'm saying? And so when we say, hey, we want you to vote over here, this is kind of what we want y'all to do. And I'm just saying it in a nice way. Y'all doing a great job. Our public works department's doing a great job. City manager's doing a great job. All of y'all do. It's hard. We understand that. Really, it's really hard. It's really hard. But keep the good work on and give the people what they want. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lucas. I live in North Hyde Park, right off of Troost. I take the Troost Max bus to work. When I moved to Kansas City after growing up and going to college in small town Iowa, there are a lot of things I moved here for, but one of the things I was most excited for was public transit. I take the bus to work every day that I can, and I have a car, but the bus is just so much easier on me, on my stress, my wallet, the climate, the roads even. But we are facing a budget shortfall. The bus service is facing a shortfall, and not only does this budget fail to meet that, it will actually cut what funding we do have. This will result in cuts to bus jobs and service across the city that we desperately need. And I'll notice that the highlights didn't mention any of these cuts that were made. The bus cuts will make it harder for me to take the bus. It will force me to rely more on my car, which is to say nothing of the millions of rides that will be impacted in the future for people that don't have a car like I do. Now, these cuts are only evidence of the city's failure to act. The money is there. It's in the Public Mass Transit Fund as being redirected away from buses and towards car infrastructure. It's in the increases to a police budget that already gets unprecedented funding. It's in the attempts to push a private-owned microtransit system that is clearly more wasteful and less effective at filling in the gap for a public service like buses. Now, instead of using this money to fund services like buses that working people need, the city has been spending it literally anywhere else and selling off our buses. The bus cuts are not an accident or a side effect, they are a choice. And Kansas Cityans will remember what choice this city makes. Fund buses now or be responsible for the harm that you bring to this city and its people. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Lillian. I am, oh God, wow. I was raised in the 4th and the 2nd districts. I was excited to move back to KC because I just wanted to re-experience the city, and instead I found that my transit routes were cut due to streetcar construction. When my family first immigrated to KC, we lived on Independence Ave, and my dad had to take 3 buses both ways every single day to go to work. Public transit was not a choice, it was our survival. Later, it allowed me to work, commute, and study abroad, and many immigrants and migrants in the city choose south of the river because of public transit access. Bus cuts take away from the few transportation options we have. Investing only in programs like IRIS up north, services that can't accommodate many people, especially during peak commute hours, does not meet the needs of those who rely on public transit the most. All people need timely and safe transportation. I've waited as long as an hour and 45 minutes for IRIS, sometimes until 9 p.m. IRIS stops at random, often busy intersections that aren't always safe or convenient, and that is not a real solution. The bus system needs to be expanded, especially up north in the 2nd district, not gutted. When you cut public transit, you are telling people that their access to safe and reliable transportation does not matter. You're telling migrants who don't have cars or the financial means to sustain them that they have no place in the city. You're sending a message to Kansas Cityans that their needs do not count. Let your legacy as a council be for all people, not just the rich and not just the white ones. Thank you.
All right, Nam Joyce Magatha, Lauren Amiconi.
Okay, hi, my name is Nam. I live in the 4th district. I was raised in the historic northeast area of Kansas City in an immigrant working class household. And I know firsthand how much our public transit system matters. My mom and dad were refugees, displaced by America's war in Vietnam. When they arrived in the US, they worked tirelessly in low-paying jobs, struggling to afford rent, food, and the rising living costs. They had to own a car because public transit wasn't a viable option. I remember them driving that car until it was inoperable. And I remember watching my parents frantically scraping together money for gas, repairs, and insurance, sacrificing opportunities for them like trade school and family vacations. Without reliable transit, the working class, and especially immigrant families like mine, they all pay a heavy price. Public transit is not a luxury. It's a lifeline. It's a marker of a healthy city, one that prioritizes the lives and well-being of its people. And when transit is defunded, it's people like my parents, immigrants, working class folks, refugees who feel it the most, who will remember it the most. Mayor Q is not even here. Brian Platt is not even here. Council members, as an elected governing body, how do you want to be remembered? Will it be as the elected body that built a jail? The elected body that incessantly funded the cops? The elected body that effectively killed off public transit in Kansas City? Or will you stand for and with people of your city? Because we'll surely remember. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joyce Magatha, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Unified Neighborhood Leaders in Districts 3 and 5. We have been meeting for about 2 years, and when we first started meeting, we identified crime, housing, and trash as our priorities. However, in order to improve those priorities within the neighborhoods, the leaders found out or realized that they had very little funding, especially most of them. So therefore, and that funding they felt could improve those concerns in the neighborhood. So for that length of time, we have been working on acquiring funding. We did acquire some funding from you all, and when I addressed you all last year, I said that I would like to be able to thank you for allotting the funding to the neighborhoods. And at this time, I want to thank you because you actually did increase the allotment quite a bit, and a lot of the neighborhood leaders received the grants. All right? And in receiving those grants, we have run into some problems with some of the leaders, and that is some of the leaders are not getting the information about what funding is accessible to them. And the lack of communication is a problem. Now, what the real cause of that, which there may be many, but the problem is that they aren't getting, my goodness, I run out of time. And so we'll come up on a resolution, and a resolution is on Councilman Carroll's desk. And he's been doing such a wonderful job in working with us, and we are going to make some recommendations further, and that is particularly about accountability and particularly about concise RFPs. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Lauren Amicone. I'm from the 3rd District. I wanted to speak briefly on 3 items. Number 1, I would urge you to continue the road diet on 39th Street between Woodland and Troost. I know that there has been road diets that have been put in west of Troost. However, if we look at the data for bike, walk, pedestrian, as well as vehicular traffic, historically in all 3 of domains for injuries as well as fatalities, that is historically significantly larger for Black Kansas Cityans as opposed to white Kansas Cityans, and we know that Troost serves as that historic dividing line of our city. So I'd really encourage you, if you drive that section of 39th Street from Woodland to Troost Avenue, you are going up and down hills while going from 2 lanes to 1 lane back to 2 lanes, and it just is extremely unsafe. And people drive extremely fast down that space. So that would be my first. I think that's aligned to your priority that you outlined in infrastructure and accessibility. Second, I know someone talked earlier about the investment in the outdoor pool at the west side. I would urge you to consider not creating a new pool, but maintaining the ones on Truman Road as well as Bud Park. My family attempted to go to both of those pools over the summer, and they are actually unsafe. There are grates that are broken, the restroom facilities are crumbling. The one they were closed often due to like an inability to manage chemicals. And I really believe that that fun access to swimming pools and swimming and being out in the sun should be accessible to all neighborhoods. You shouldn't have to have a car to drive to West Side to then experience what is going to be, I imagine, a really remarkable pool. The third thing, I was gonna just say thank you to the investment in the sidewalks around the Garfield neighborhood. That has impacted 75 students who walk to school each and every day. So thank you for prioritizing elementary schools.
Thank you. And Lauren is an example of every time I try to add an E at her name, I think. So I apologize. There's several on here that I know every year we do this, and maybe by my last year, I will get your name right. Chad, you're one of them. I'm just gonna call you Chad, right? I always mess up your name, right? Don't I? You're next. Don Maxwell and Evie Craig.
Okay. My name is Chad Onyawa. I live and work here in Kansas City, and I ride the bus all over. I ride it for work, to meet up with friends. I rode it here today. And it can be annoying, even today, of course, passed over, I was late. But it's also all that I have, and also it is pretty useful. So the first thing that I honestly wanted to ask first was, just quickly, how many of you on council do rely on the bus? Okay, so first, okay, cool to see one hand up, but regardless, I guess my second question is still the same, which is, how are you able to say that you represent Kansas Cityans or improving our lives if you are actively destroying our access to jobs, if you're actively destroying, actually destroying union jobs, you're actually destroying people's access to shelters, doctors, grocery stores, etc. I don't see that as making our city any better, and I don't see that as representing my interest as someone who's continually tried to improve our bus system by engaging with you here. There's millions of dollars on the table, and I want to know, are you going to amend this budget for the benefit of Kansas Cityans, or are you going to continue to sell out Kansas Cityans and your neighbors and sacrifice us for private interests, as if that's all, as if that's how it has to be? So thank you for listening, and I hope that you actually leave a legacy of progressive public transit in the city. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Don Maxwell. I am the operator of the Linwood Shopping Center, Linwood Square, also the representative for the Palestine Senior Activity Center and the Prospect Business Association. Most of my life has been consumed for the last 45 years in the redevelopment of projects along the Prospect Corridor. We've made many requests, and the city has funded a lot of the projects that we've attempted to do. But I'm still asking that the council give consideration to continuing to support the redevelopment of the Prospect Corridor, especially as it relates to developing jobs along that corridor. We're trying to create jobs that are for people who come from the 3rd District and the 5th District. Would appreciate your continued support, and I appreciate the support that we received in the past. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Evie Craig, and I am president of the Paseo West Neighborhood Association in the 3rd District and executive director of the Arts Asylum in the 6th. You have a flyer size of this poster that I have here in front of me that was taken from a recent edition of the Northeast News. From November 2024 through January of 2025, the Northeast Kansas City and its surrounding areas experienced a total of 78 fires. That's not counting February, by the way, and there have been more in the past 2 weeks, including residential, commercial, vacant, and occupied buildings within its zip codes 64106 and 64123 through 127. Of these, I just said it didn't include February. I'm sorry, I want to watch my time here. The cause of these fires has ranged anywhere from incendiary to electrical and accidental, among others. Many direct causes still remain undetermined, and many of these fires have been completely uninvestigated. Stakeholders choose this area because its diversity, great neighbors, and histories, but our quality of life is severely threatened by vacant buildings, absentee owners, and an epidemic of fire. We ask for a clear understanding of the following: coordinated strategies to prevent fires, how to engage with the fire department. We've had 911 put us on hold, call us and yell at us if we don't remain on hold for a long time. It's very difficult to figure out what to do. We're also trying to figure out which fires the fire department will respond to and which ones they will not, or they cannot, according to their protocol. They cannot put out fires that are in barrels if people are warming themselves. They can't put out fires by railroad tracks. We had one that happened in front of Port KC that was pretty serious a couple weeks ago. They can't do it on parklands unless they have a written agreement with a park to do that, and some empty lots if they're by encampments. Their protocol is not to put them out. Standardized and effective methods for boarding up buildings. I could go on just to say residents in many neighborhoods are boarding up buildings themselves. We're glad to see that there's an increase in public safety, another contract increase being proposed for the fire department. We would just like to see that come with an equal concern for public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Sky, Josh Boehm, Ryan Mott.
Hello. My name is Sky. I live in Midtown, and I take the 31 to work at the Bluford Public Library. I take the main max down to Waldo to play D&D on the weekends. I take the bus to get groceries, to go to appointments, and to live my life. I use public transportation nearly every day. In the past 2 years, I've had to call into work 4 times because it was so cold that waiting for my bus was dangerous. This is because if my bus was late or didn't come at all, I could have gotten frostbite before I could get back home. I've had to choose to stay home and miss a day of pay because I can't count on my bus being there when it's supposed to be. If more bus routes are cut, if there isn't enough funding to keep our drivers' jobs, then more people are going to be in this exact same situation. More people will be at risk, not just for frostbite during the winter, waiting for a bus that will never come, but also for heat stroke in the summer and for car accidents too while they're waiting by the road. More than 60% of bus drivers live paycheck to paycheck like me. We cannot afford to buy cars, but you can afford to fund our buses. You can be the ones who keep us from losing our jobs, our homes, and our lives. You can do what's right. Amend this budget and make something better. Fund our buses. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Josh Boehm. I'm with the Kansas City Regional Transit Alliance, another transit comment. I don't own a car either. Walking, biking, and transit are my main mode of transportation. And this proposed budget will result in really devastating cuts to public transportation. We'll see what's left of our frequent bus routes be significantly reduced, their hours curtailed. We'll see coverage cut off. We'll see routes that are very useful that thousands of people ride every day cut. The proposed budget diverts $18 million, from what I can tell, from the public mass transportation sales tax, which voters overwhelmingly approved 2 years ago. And there are very few things that provide as much value as public transit. So I just want to kind of set the record straight on the KCATA as well and its efficiency. The average bus costs $184 per vehicle revenue hour. I'm sorry, the average KCATA bus costs $184 per vehicle revenue hour. That's the average in the United States is 182. So KCATA is right on par with national costs. Their overhead is equivalent to every national agency. I'm a transportation planner, but you don't need to be a transportation planner to know this. You can go to the FTA's website, download the National Transit Database, and find this data yourself. Let's see. A lot goes into providing an hour of bus service. It's not just the operator, but it's the diesel mechanics, it's the custodians, it's the people who I see power washing, Fifth and Grand, Max Stop a couple times a week. It's the people who buy health insurance, who buy buses, who plan and schedule service. I work with some of them. They are overworked, they're underpaid, and their jobs are at risk as a result of this, and that's devastating to me personally. So in the past, the mayor and council have actually made a commitment to reduce the redirections from the public transit sales tax. This was under Mayor James' term. You guys could do that as well. Great things happen during that term, and you guys are going to do great things as well, but we really hope you dig deep into this budget and save this year's public transit operation funding.
Hello, Ryan Mott, 4th District resident. I used to be a driver, and then the Armor bike lanes were the first protected bike lanes in Kansas City that went in, and that got me to ride a bike. I've been riding a bike for 6 years now. I use it for fun and for transportation. My daughters walk and ride bikes to school, and we owe that both to the Armor bike lanes and the Gillum cycle track. And we do that year-round, every day when it's safe. And sometimes it's blocked by cars, sometimes it's blocked by broken glass or by ice and snow that hasn't been cleared. So I am encouraged to see in the budget there's additional money for Vision Zero. I hope that stays. I rode my bike here today and had a close call slipping on the ice, almost sliding out. So I had to get out of the bike lane and into the vehicle lane, which as a confident cyclist I can do, but as my friends and my daughters maybe aren't so confident. As they're getting closer to driving age, I don't want them to drive. I want them to have the opportunity to have safe routes on their bicycle. I want the opportunity for them to take the bus wherever they need to go. But as they get closer to that, the bus isn't reliable or it doesn't go where they go, and they don't have safe biking infrastructure everywhere they need it. I hope the council prioritize that. Lastly, if rural Missouri wants to control our police, rural Missouri should pay for our police. Don't give them an extra cent that isn't absolutely required. Thank you.
Margaret Taylor, Amber Underwood, and Kate Schulte.
Hello, my name is Amber Underwood, and I'm a musician. I'm a music educator in the Kansas City Public School District, and I'm here to represent the Creative Cities. UNESCO, we are the only music creative city in the United States. I'm here today to request a full financial support for Creative Cities KC and in our membership in the UNESCO Creative Cities Network as the first UNESCO city as music in the United States. 2026 is a critical year for Kansas City musicians and music venues as we prepare for the FIFA World Cup, June through July 2026. I support Creative Cities, KC, and cities memberships as the first and only UNESCO creative city. Music economy is critical to our city's economy. Promoting music exchanges and helping Kansas City musicians to travel internationally builds the Kansas City brand. There was musicians that were here earlier. I was part of that group to represent Kansas City Jazz as a woman and travel to Chile in 2023. And I was able to bring that back here and not only educate our youth, but to bring it into our schools. And it's very important. I'm also a band and orchestra director that is educating our kids today. So we need to be able to pass that to our next generation. We have a unique opportunity in 26 to prepare and to welcome the world. Now is the time to increase our local investment in the music economy through the work of UNESCO and Creative Cities KC. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all. Marquita Taylor, President of Santa Fe Area Council, also on the Community Resource Team. I want to start with a thank you, an absolute thank you to the Neighborhoods Department and for City Council allowing those dollars to continue to flow to those neighborhoods. It's making a tremendous, tremendous difference. Thank you so much. The Neighborhood Department are wonderful. They work well. I thank them so much. I want to also thank Councilman Duncan for stepping outside of his neighborhood, but recognizing that there's a number of issues in other areas that are going to affect every neighborhood. So I thank you so much for submitting dollars for Reach KC. I want to see great things happen with that. I do know that it's a referral basis, which brings me to the next part of my conversation. There are a number of on-the-ground organizations that want so much to make an impact on 31st and Prospect, up and down that area. We talk about it, we say we're going to fix it, it's still there. So it's still a problem. We're getting ready to go into spring. We definitely need some additional help. We need those dollars on the ground to those individuals who want to come in and do the work and not just referral services. I also want to speak to affordable housing. Affordable housing is not just providing housing for new people. It is helping those people who already live there stay in their own homes to maintain those affordable housing. Those dollars need to go there. And when you say minor home repair, you're talking about small things. There are big things. We want our neighbors and our residents to be able to stay in their own community. Thank you so much for all you do, and I appreciate all of you for your work. You've been great last year. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kate Schulte. I am a resident of the 3rd District, and I'm grateful to be here and grateful to hear about how much Kansas City cares. I am with House KC. We are trying to create a unified response to homelessness in Kansas City and really try to end homelessness. We love the Zero KC plan, and we really want to see the city invest in that more. We need a low barrier shelter system in Kansas City. I love seeing that you put $1 million into extending the emergency shelters to extend beyond just the winter time, but it's not going to be enough for the number of people who need it. So we really need more investment in that. We also need more outreach workers so folks are ready to be in housing when it becomes available. I've tried many times to get many of my friends and neighbors into the medical care that they need, but we do not have enough substance use disorder beds or mental health beds in Kansas City to meet the need. So we really need more investment in beds. And the other thing is, if we don't have homes for people to go to when they're house ready, then they can't get housed. So we really need more affordable housing, just more housing in general in Kansas City. So I hope we'll prioritize that in this budget. And then I stand in solidarity with the Sunrise Move and everyone else who's talked about public transit. We need a robust public transit system. Many of our friends who are sleeping on the streets depend on that to get to shelters overnight, to get to necessary medical appointments, and they won't be able to get there unless we have a system to get them there. So thanks for hearing me out. Thanks.
Elena Henry and Thomas Miller.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. First, thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to keep it brief. I did not pre-write a speech. I loved the speeches that I've heard today. The two things that I wanted to talk about, first, minor home repair, major home repair. We have an affordable housing crisis in Kansas City. I think it's important that the City Council prioritizes additional funds for the CDCs that are here in the city doing minor home repair work. Many of them have lost the capacity to run really robust minor home repair programs. We want to keep our seniors in their homes. We want to keep folks in the homes that already exist, in addition to bolstering the development processes. I've talked to a few of the council members about some of the red tape or barriers that are limiting development, especially for smaller developers, and I think that some modifications on the city's end would help with sort of meeting the needs of housing. The other thing that I wanted to talk about that I didn't hear anyone mention today was support of our local food system. We recognize that food access is a challenge for many of the members of our community, including members of the houseless population and others. Most of us are living paycheck to paycheck. And as we see a decrease in regulations in the food industry, as we see increased barriers for costs, you know, people have been talking about eggs as of late, access to fresh, local food is critical. And without the specific and intentional support of local farmers and growers here in Kansas City, without dollars to support organizations that help foster the development of local growers, we are going to be at a crisis point with food production and distribution here in Kansas City. And with some of the crises that's happening in the USDA and in the federal government, it's really incumbent on us to come together to make sure people eat, because we all need to eat. So, thank you.
All right, good morning. My name is Thomas Miller, and good Lord, give me wisdom and understanding to talk to your great, wonderful people. What I'd like to do today is to talk about why we need basically workforce development training, and also we need business development training in Kansas City at the tune of about $2.5 million for training. The projects are coming in now from Kansas City at about $800 million. They used to come in at $100 million. And what prime contractors are doing is they're hiring from out of town. And those contractors are taking their money back to where they came from, and then we're not taxing it. So we need to develop locally. Now, this is what the prime contractors have been doing according to the disparity report in 2016. Race and gender neutral approaches are a necessary component of a defensible and effective MWBE program, and the failure to seriously consider such remedies has been fatal to the survival of the programs. Difficulty in accessing procurement opportunities, restrictive bid specification, excessive experience requirements, overly burdensome insurance and bonding requirements, for example, might be addressed by the KCMO without resorting to the use of race and gender in its decision-making. Effective remedies include unbundling of the contracts into smaller units, providing technical support and training programs, and address issues of financing, bonding, and insurance, important to all small and emerging businesses. Further, governments have a duty to ferret out and punish discrimination against minorities and women by their contractors and staff and bonding companies. 75% of all construction projects are performed by white male-owned businesses. Approximately 4.5% are black-owned businesses. And we are just here to try to balance that disparity with the training is what we're trying to do with strategic workforce development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Nasser Montalvo, Vanita Von Siffel, Jackson Joseph.
Sorry, I'm tall. Hi, my name is Nasir Anthony Montalvo. I live in the West Side, 4th District, and I'm a frequent bus rider, particularly the 11 and 24 lines, and I'm here to testify in support of funding our buses. I do not have a car or a driver's license, so the bus is my primary mode of transportation. But the bus system has meant more to me than just being able to get from point A to point B. When I first moved to Kansas City in 2021, I lived in the Northeast, where I met so many people in my community today through just taking a ride home from work. As you know, the Northeast has a large houseless population. Every Monday at 5 p.m., the 24 bus has been critical in helping many of my friends and community members get a free meal, clothes, and financial help at the church on Independence Boulevard. For me, during the winter, when I needed to walk a few blocks down to the CVS or Walgreens for my medication, I could hop on the 24 and keep warm instead of trying to trudge through the snow. The buses are not merely a mode of transportation. They're a community connector. They're a source of warmth. They are quite literally a means of life and death for someone looking to eat their next meal. Our city has already taken away benches from most of our stops, let alone there even being shelters. Some stops for the routes I take are in the middle of busy streets with no paved sidewalks. There is no digital signage, so if you don't have a smartphone, there's no way of finding out if your route is running late or taking a detour. The thousands of folks that use the bus daily are not going to remember your plans for Iris, but we will remember our feelings every morning not being able to sit down at our bus stop. And we're definitely going to remember if you cut our only ride to work every morning. Stop the cuts, redirect your greed, and fund our buses. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Vanita Fain Sifri, and I'd like to thank the council for the opportunity to speak this morning. I am a housing official with over 45 years' experience in low-income housing as well as real estate. And my concerns are regarding the housing and healthy community increases. I think I'm in full support of them, and that when proposals for housing, for the Housing Trust Fund are presented, that there's emphasis placed on providing affordable home ownership opportunities for the residents of this city with truly affordable mortgage payments. $2,000 is not affordable for most households. Also, regarding the emergency rental assistance program for people facing eviction, I am in support of that, but I'm also asking that the council keep in place those partnerships that were developed last year with landlords that would accept housing for people without regarding the source of income, meaning those vouchers, homelessness, and rental assistance programs that we have here in the city. There are a lot of expenses associated with offering rentals, the increased county taxes, the increased insurance, and so forth, and the small mom and pop landlord is really the backbone of the rental system here in Kansas City, and they should be supported. I'm also in full support of the increase in cleanup and enforcement of illegal dumping and the cleanup of the homeless camps. Unfortunately, because some of the homeless people that are accepted into rentals, they bring along some of these hoarding type tactics, and it leads to trash in the neighborhoods. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Joseph Jackson. First, I want to say thank you to Mayor Pro Tem Shaw and members of the City Council for coming out today. Budgeting is a difficult process. There's always more requests than there is money. And being on the school board, I know that definitely. First, I'm going to talk about the 11% increase in public safety. At a time, the police department didn't have CIT officers out there. Now they do because they learned that a lot of things they run into, they need help with. There was a time when we didn't have social workers in our police stations. Now we do because we found out that some people need resources, and those resources can keep the police from coming out. As we look at building a new jail, a lot of our people in our city have mental health challenges. We have to establish partnerships to keep those people who have mental health challenges out of the system legal, in a jail cell that does them no good, but also we have to work with the people who are in jail to get them job training, job resources. We are in an unprecedented time. A family now is going to take out a loan just to get a dozen eggs. So if we give people skills and job training and help those who need mental health, then they can get to that. Second, the trash situation. We used to have 2 unlimited trash cycles a year. Now those are gone away, but people still put out the trash. Well, that trash is going to sit on the curb. It brings vermin. Then, if I don't want it in front of my house, I'll take it to the next lot and go from there. And so now we spend the spring trying to clean up. What if we could get trash trucks and put those in those neighborhoods for people to bring those extra trash bags to when they have family over and everything and do like that, do a lot to help our neighborhoods. Then third, right to counsel. We're going to spend a lot more money, but we have to look at 2 things. One, our children need help. The families are there. When a child moves around, there's gaps in that education. Let's be proactive, find a way to figure out which landlords, which tenants are in a problem before they get to that point, and then help them before they get to that point because the children are the ones that suffer from that. Last, we have had a hard winter. Can we find a way to identify the potholes? As a person who drove over a 7-inch deep pothole in this city, caused $1,500 worth of damage to my car with a cracked rim, let's find out where those potholes are, be proactive so the other residents won't suffer that fate.
All right, I have 3 more names that I'm going to call. If I do not call your name and you still want to testify, we will have an opportunity at the after these 3 names. Allison Rozga, Joan Kelly, and Keisha Smith.
Hi, my name's Allison Razga, and I live in the 3rd District, and I'm also with House KC. I'm asking City Council to honor the promises made through Zero KC. I really appreciate the city's acknowledgement that we need an office for unhoused solutions, but now it's time to fund solutions for homelessness. I applaud the city's move to open low barrier cold weather shelters, but it's vital that this becomes a year-round service. I'm a volunteer in Kansas City who works with unhoused individuals, and it is the most defeating feeling in the world when an individual is ready to make a shift in their life, and then we call place after place, and there's no openings for them to go to, like a landing spot so that they can start making the changes that they want to make. We just get no after no. So there are far too few beds, year-round beds available. So we need to create more, low-income housing. I'm getting a little shaky. As the housing prices rise, individuals who would traditionally take the middle income housing options are now taking the low income housing options. And so those individuals that would take the low income housing just don't have anything at all. They're on the streets. So, and then the last thing I'll say is, like, in Kansas City, I hear so much from everyone about like how we're proud of our sports teams. I want to be proud of being a city that takes care of our citizens and offers housing and safety for people. So I really would like you to fund that.
Good morning. Refugees and immigrants contribute $1.3 billion to revenue in Kansas City, and transportation remains the largest barrier to their contributions increasing. Accessible transportation connects people to opportunities, jobs, education, healthcare, and community. Transportation is a lifeline for integration and self-sufficiency. Our bus system is the most accessible transportation for refugees and immigrant populations, and it is essential, but it's not enough. IRIS and other solutions the city has championed is not accessible. I am heartened by the language access that we have here, and I want to echo that transportation without language access and cultural competency still creates barriers. For many of our non-English speaking neighbors, IRIS is not a current solution, and the funding to the Full Employment Council for Transportation Assistance is not accessible. In the 3 years I have overseen workforce programs, I have not had a single successful referral to FEC for non-English or Spanish speakers. My ask to you all is that you please invest in our refugee and immigrant communities so they can transport themselves and be empowered to contribute to our community. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you to the council and everyone who's come early. I don't have a speech like someone else said, but the one thing that I would be remiss if I didn't speak on youth and young adults. We continue to have a lot of problems in Kansas City, whether it be public safety, violence, education, and there's a thread there. Our young people, making sure that we're allocating dollars to support their growth, their future. Everything that we're talking about in here today will ultimately be what they experience when we're no longer here. And so the only thing that I want to say is let's make sure that we're championing the youth and that we're allocating funding and resources so that we can have a thriving community again when we're no longer here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak and did not get an opportunity? If so, just come on up to the microphone and give your name and your testimony.
Hello, my name is Mehreen. I'm a 3rd District resident. I grew up in the 5th District. I'm going to tell a story that I've told a few times. So growing up in the 5th District, it was a transit desert. I remember my mom would give rides to other moms in our neighborhood to the grocery store so that they would not have to push a stroller, carry grocery bags, hold their child's hand, and walk on the side of a road. The buses are a lifeline. They were my lifeline 2 years ago until I was forced to get a car in order to pursue better job opportunities. And I feel like I'm not the only Kansas Citian who is feeling the pinch of owning a car. Gas, car note, repairs, insurance are a barrier. They are so expensive, and we are seeing the cost of living only rise, which makes it more important for us to have a bus system that we can rely on. We are watching cuts happen to our bus system that can be prevented. We are at risk of losing 15 routes and 150 union jobs. This is entirely preventable, and it is on the council to fill the $20 million gap that would allow that to happen. I am asking you guys, as someone who depended on the bus and wants to be able to depend on the bus, and who is in community with folks who depend on the bus, Kansas Cityans are asking you, will you fund the buses? Will you stand up for Kansas Cityans? Or will you allow our lifeline to die? Will you allow us to be jobless, to not be able to access the doctor, pharmacies, restaurants, grocery, our work? Please fund our buses. Thank you.
Good morning, council members and fellow residents. My name is Joe Nelson. I'm here to speak on two critical topics: public education and business innovation, specifically through KC BizCare. First, on public education, we face a looming funding gap as federal and state resources shrink. Our reliance on local property taxes perpetuates inequity and leaves our schools vulnerable to market shifts. We need a long-term investment strategy that prioritizes universal pre-K and supports the educators who shape our future. Housing is a key factor. Teachers, like our KCPD, KCFD, and city staff, often face crushing student debt tied to required credentials. Let's invest in housing solutions that reflect income levels so that those who serve here can afford to live here. And just as KCPD has a liaison at City Hall, education deserves the same representation to coordinate across districts and strengthen citywide collaboration. Second, on business innovation, KC BizCare has empowered countless local entrepreneurs with limited resources, helping fuel safe, vibrant neighborhoods. With full funding, the potential impact is enormous. More businesses, more jobs, and a stronger tax base for city services. These investments are a proactive approach to growth and stability. Had we made similar long-term commitments years ago, we might have avoided some of the reactive public safety crises and funding spikes we face today. Let's act now, build a stronger, more equitable Kansas City for everyone. On the KCATA note and public transportation, please look at any funding that's going towards programs specifically for folks with disabilities. If you listen, if you talk to the Coalition for the Blind, there's a lot of issues there. And then any funding going to KCBD, please look at increasing funding for community interaction officers. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lenny Hall, and I'm representing myself with the extemporary message. I usually come here as a reporter, and I've been reporting these things, these hearings, for about 2 years, which means for 2 years I've been hearing the same thing, which means you've been hearing the same thing, which means issues have gone unresolved. I am coming to mostly speak about the public transit as a child of two blind parents. Two blind parents who use bus transit as a child, and growing up today, I understand how crucial that is to lifelines. By the grace of whatever deity you believe in, I have one eye. I lost my right eye, so it's by the grace of that I am able to provide transit for myself via car payment that I don't want to pay for, but it is not lost on me that there is, at stake the potential that I could also lose my sight and therefore have to rely on public transit. And I think what's lost on that is we hear people speaking up on behalf of the migrant community, on behalf of workers and those who can't afford, but very, very seldom do we hear people speaking up for those who rely on that public transit because they do not have the the ability to see. So I implore you to think about those things, think about communities that will be impacted by that and who don't have the income to kind of supplement that loss. Thank you.
Good morning. Jonathan Feverston, 3rd District resident. I am here this morning to voice support for the Vision Zero funding that is in the current proposed budget. Specifically, when I spoke with my neighbors, there was a lot of interest in potentially using some of that funding to fund a street diet on 39th Street. So there have been past PIAC submittals for a street diet from the 4th District, but also in the 3rd District section. And there was also in 2019 a plan called the Midtown Complete Streets Plan that in many ways has yet to be implemented. The top priority in that plan was the 39th Street Road Diet. We have a lot of transit riders along this corridor, specifically at 39th and Troost with the transit center there. And a lot of, from being a resident in that area, I've seen a lot of really close calls from car-to-car crashes, but also car-to-pedestrian. As Sunrise KC has voiced this morning, a lot of transit riders rely on getting around by bus because they cannot afford a car. So I can't imagine if a transit rider were hit by a vehicle, what that economic cost would be to that household. So I just really want to reiterate, support for transit funding, but also support for, all users in that corridor by directing Vision Zero funds to make that improvement. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Wayne Snyder, and I'm the president of the Gregg-Klice Community Center Advisory Committee. And I'm here to talk about support for the Parks and Recreations Department. I've been a member here at the Gregg-Klice Community Center for over 25 years. I've seen a number of programs come and go. But here recently, our kids, particularly the disadvantaged kids, they have to pay $5 in order to come to this particular community center. I don't know if it's community center wide, but there's been a decrease in the kids coming to our community centers. And to me, that's appalling. There's infrastructure here at this particular community center with regard to the pool. So now we have our kids have to pay $5, right, to come in, and there's been a decrease in their population. The pool is down, and it's going to, not to say that our administration is not working on it, but it's going to take a year and a half to get the infrastructure completed. I implore you, if we are serious about our children and making sure that they are not on the streets creating havoc, we need to invest in our parks and recreation facilities, make sure that we have the various programs to bring these kids in and not put the cost on parents that are disadvantaged so these kids can come in here and have a safe place. Thank you.
Hey everyone, Logan Stacer, founder Heartland Arts KC. Here today just to speak on behalf of the artist community. I work with artists all around the city of any discipline, comedians, poets, rappers, visual artists, professional beatboxers. And what I can report back is that as Kansas City is rapidly changing, as the city's expanding, a lot of artists are really afraid that the arts community is being left behind. Kansas City is a UNESCO creative city of music, the only one in the United States. And so the culture here, we're already top of the class. It's not like the arts are a fringe thing here in Kansas City. There's a lot of value that we provide, and our value is recognized nationally and internationally. And what I can say is that artists, despite sort of this uphill battle we feel to feel seen by, the city, we want the best for Kansas City. And artists, if anything, are passionate and very effective communicators. And this year I'm working with a group of artists who are diving into infrastructure policy. And in 8 weeks, we're going to create a performance around infrastructure in Kansas City. And so what I know is that these artists that I'm working with, these artists in Kansas City, want to be a part of the city. They want to be a part of the conversation, and they don't want to feel alienated from the rest of the efforts to making Kansas City, the city that is in the national spotlight. And so I'm just wanting to advocate for continued support for the arts, continued support for UNESCO Creative City of Music, and just continued opportunities for artists and creatives to have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Megan. I live off of I-39 or 39th Street. And every morning when I get up, I can see that bus stop at Holmes and 39th, and I get anxious if I see a neighbor crossing the street to get from one side to the other with no crosswalk. And I get worried that one of these days that I'm going to see a hit and run because it's terrifying to see cars go 50 miles an hour in a residential area, and that there are no ability for residents to get across the street without going down to Gillum or down to Troost, really. So that's disheartening to see all the time. It's also disheartening to hear that the programs that fund and support infrastructure to make that safer don't have the budgets that they need, and yet other areas have more budget that they maybe don't need. So, I mean, I understand that in an ideal world, that if the city could afford to support the basic needs of safety for these programs, as well as funding Amendment 4, then by all means fund everything. But whenever we don't have that, and we're looking at a $65 million variance this year, maybe consider not funding the police as much as the state agreed and signed up Kansas City residents to take on. So I want to challenge the council to kind of be bold, take on that risk, and you'll have your Kansas City residents' support. That's all.
Hello, I'm Nathan. I live down in South Kansas City off Holmes Road. I'd like to reiterate everyone that's shown support for the increased money to Vision Zero. I think that's a great program, especially living in South Kansas City. Every day I see people walking down homes that have to walk either in the street or in a ditch. And so continuing to build sidewalks and to have places where people don't have cars, I think is very fortunate. However, what I think is unfortunate is I think that the public bus system is intertwined with that. So to see money going to Vision Zero, but to have money cut from the bus system, I feel like cuts away from that overall goal. I feel very fortunate that I have a car and get to drive a car around Kansas City, because when I try to use the bus, it is unreliable and it makes me not want to use it. And for those that have to use it, they don't have another choice, and I don't think it's acceptable to continue to cut the funding to that. I think that it's great that we have at least one council member that relies on a bus, but I think it'd be great to see the rest of the council just to try for even a few days to use that, and then to come back and still say that it has enough money. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Drew. I'm a resident of the 4th District of Kansas City, and I don't ride the bus. I wanted to make sure that all bus riders here had an opportunity to speak before non-bus riders like myself did, but I do want to say this. I would like to take the bus. Public transit shouldn't only be a necessity for those who rely on it. It should be a choice, it should be transformative, and it should be accessible. There's been mention of the World Cup here in 2026, and rightfully so. I'd imagine that over 500,000 visitors would expect quality public transit service. What a shame it would be if that was not the case, or if it only existed for them for those 2 months while the everyday Kansas Citian loses access once that World Cup is over. That being said, I think it's worth noting that you all do fund public transit. The city's work to expand the streetcar is notable, though services like this should be just as available for those who need public transit in all parts of Kansas City. It shouldn't just be on you guys to fund our buses, but at the moment, it is. County commissioners have not stepped up. State elected leaders have not stepped up. A broader, multifaceted, multi-partner solution is needed with these folks. But at the very least, for now, we need you to step up and to save our public transit system. Also, fund the arts, please and thank you.
Morning, everybody. First off, I want to say thank you, not just for doing the budget hearing that you've done every year, and I appreciate that, but you have already funded many of the advocacies that I believe we're all here for, neighborhoods in particular. Your Neighborhood Empowerment Grant Program, I want to see fully funded continually. So year after year, our neighborhoods, especially our challenged neighborhoods, can depend on a steady stream of city support. The neighborhood empowerment grants allow us to do minor home repair, code abatement, neighborhood safety, neighborhood opportunities for our young people. It builds community, and this is the single largest funding source that many of our neighborhoods have. And I'd like to see that please continue. And if you would consider boosting it, that would be fine too, but at least hold the line on this neighborhood empowerment grant program. I think that's essential for our struggling neighborhoods, our neighborhoods who have some deep-seated problems to find their way into a successful city. That's what I want to thank you for. What I'd like to continuing advocating for is what I asked for 2 years ago when I was here. It wasn't during the time that the pandemic kicked in, but at the time, and I wasn't trying to be a hair on fire guy, but the single biggest threat to our community is another health epidemic. We have one more viral outbreak, one more health epidemic, and it will ruin this city. So it is much more in terms of a comprehensive threat, much more than any sort of civic disorder, a natural disaster. It's a health emergency we should be prepared for. So please fund our health department completely and consider that we're in a time, some people call them plague times. I call them pandemic times. Thank you.
So I was handed another sheet of paper, and Lizette, if you have not spoken yet, please come on up. And anyone else whose name hasn't been called and still wants to speak, please go ahead and line up.
Hello, my name is Lisette Valdez. I live District 3, right behind East High School. What I would like for the city to fund is everything. But quite honestly, I live right behind East High School, and one disappointing thing that I see on a daily is the kids walking on the street instead of walking on sidewalks. And that's very disappointing to me because, you know, sidewalks are fundamental, especially in neighborhoods that they live in. I'm just tired of where I live, where I grew up, that is still the same over 36 years. It's still the same. And I'm just ready for the city to level it up because it's about time to level it up. Kansas City is like, it's booming, we see it, and I'm just ready for a change as a resident. As a Northeast, East Side native, I would really love to see assets, like new assets for the youth, you know, gyms, just healthy. What I see in my neighborhood is gas stations, liquor stores, tobacco stores, just leveling up. And I'm like, what's happening in my neighborhood? Why do I have to leave my neighborhood to go to the gym, to go on a walk? Well, because I ain't got sidewalks, you know, and those are easy things to fix. East High School, their soccer team just won the Missouri State champs last year. And our kids are our future, and we just need to focus on creating the assets for our kids and also for the young adults that want to see these changes in their neighborhood.
Thank you. Seeing no one else lined up, I just want to thank everyone that's come out. And Lizette, I think you summed it all up. I wish as a city that we could fund everything because I haven't heard anything said today that isn't worth the funding. And if I could direct our Director of Finance, Tammy Queen, to go look in the city's sofas to find an additional, $100 million, I would say let's fund it all. But there are some difficult decisions this council is going to have to make. And over the next, I wish I had the number, but next 5-6 weeks, we are going to be making those decisions and we're going to be having those conversations. And we are going to be hearing from the public at 2 additional meetings. And so I'm just going to give my colleagues a minute to kind of give closing remarks if they wish to. And I guess we'll go in the same order, or we'll start with our 3rd district. Oh, yes, I said we could do that, didn't I? All right, applaud everyone for coming out. Thank you for taking time.
Thank you all so much for your passion and really speaking truth to power today. It's very refreshing for you to come and give specific things that you're expecting from your government. And we look forward to, again, representing your interests. And so I took down 49 people came and spoke and gave us direction. And I really, really appreciate you. And so please stay engaged in this process as we continue to solidify this budget. I learned a lot from you, and so I appreciate the exchange and look forward to, again, making sure that we're able to implement hopefully all, but I know that that resources are constrained. But I know that we need to invest in people over profit. We need to invest in people, and so I look forward to doing that over the next couple of weeks as we close out the process.
Thank you for mentioning the number. I meant to do that.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for providing us your list of priorities that you think we should be focusing on. I have to just say how hardened I also am with language access, because it was a budget meeting a couple of years ago that we had one of our residents had to bring her own person to translate. And I'm so excited that we heard, we listened, we invested, and now have interpreters back there that are making your government more accessible to you. And so just want to thank you. Yes, let's lift them up. So as the Mayor Pro Tem and proudly representing Kansas City's 5th District, I agree with my colleague. I didn't hear anything today that shouldn't be funded. But you also heard that, we don't have enough money to go around. And so over the next 5 to 6 weeks, I encourage you all to continue to engage, tell your neighbors, tell your family, your friends to come and participate in the remaining the remaining budget committees or budget meetings, as well as I would encourage you, if you haven't signed up for either your district newsletter, please make sure you go to the website, because some of the things that you all talked about today, like Prospect, we've got something coming up with Prospect that I think you all want to hear about. So those of you who talked about Prospect, I'll stay around for a second after to give you some information about that. But I encourage you to make sure you sign up for your district newsletters, because you will get more information, because some of these things are in the works. Thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to continuing to hear from you about what we should be prioritizing.
I'm just going to be quick and say thanks, of course, to everyone who came out and spoke about the budget process and your priorities. Your comments are not lost on me, and I will continue to work with my colleagues to ensure that we find the right balance here. But I want to also just express my gratitude to city staff. I see of course, the finance department and the budget office especially, but I see department directors, I see assistant city managers, I see deputy directors, I see the planning department in particular very well represented, aviation department. Just thank you all to city staff for all that you do to not only make sure that this stuff gets done and set up, but you're also always the experts in the room to help us understand how these decisions we're making regarding the budget, for example, affect the community and affect the city and affect the work that you all do. So thank you all. And again, thanks everyone for coming out here on this kind of bummer weather of a Sunday or Saturday. Hopefully it's always like this because we choose to do the budget in the worst weather time, but hopefully we'll get some sunshine out there pretty soon. So thanks everyone. Oh yes, good point. If you are a city staff, please would you stand just so the folks know whether you are, whatever leadership or whatever role you play at the city, I just want to make sure you're recognized. These are the folks, one of a handful of several thousand city employees who make sure that the city actually operates. So thank you all.
Just want to thank everybody for advocating for your neighborhoods, advocating to ensure that we can walk in this city, that we can get around in this city without a car, that we can get to jobs, that we can advocate for public safety in our neighborhoods with CAN centers, that we can advocate for our artists. I didn't hear anybody advocate for a jail. So thank you all for being here today.
Well, seeing how I'm last, I'm going to be very brief because I know everybody's probably got other things that they want to do on a Saturday. But I just want to, again, thank everybody for coming out this afternoon, this morning. Your comments will be taken to heart. I mean, this is where our process starts, listening to you, understanding what your concerns are and what your priorities are. And contrary to probably beliefs, we do take your comments seriously. It's not like we just come here to sit here and say, oh, there they'll go again. No, we listen, we understand, and we feel you. So I want to make sure that everybody knows that when we go into our deliberations in regards to trying to find the best balance for funding, we do listen, we do care, and we are going to try to do the best that we can to fund everything. Unfortunately, we won't be able to, but if we can give you a little bit of something, it will show you that we care. So once again, thank you again. Appreciate you coming out, and have a good rest of your weekend.